Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Fireside Chat, today's stream. I'm Sophia, and I'm joined today by Cole, a photographer from South Africa, and I'm really excited today to have her here to talk about her projects and about photography and portraits and all the good stuff. Welcome to the stream.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. This is exciting.
Yes, I'm really excited.
Yeah,
because I've already seen all your stuff.
Yeah, you got the sneak peek. So I'm gonna have to also make it a little exciting for you as well.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm really happy and grateful to be here. Thank you for reaching out to me. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, I found out about your work because you were also part of the Adobe Creative Residency Community Fund. I always say this wrong, but let's call it Community Fund, because you did a commission for Lightroom, right?
Yeah, so I was commissioned during October. I was producing, I had to produce 20 assets for Lightroom, and that was wild. It's kind of a dream experience, dream come true. I've been dreaming of working with Adobe for five years, I think. It was actually a Berlin-based artist, David Uzukuchiwo, I don't want to say his name incorrectly, but who first did the Photoshop commission. And it was my first time seeing someone making work like that, and also was a Black artist. And I remember when I saw it, my first question was, how did he do that? How did he get access to Adobe? And then I spent most of my college time trying to figure it out. So I entered the Adobe Design Achievement Awards because it was a student focus in 2016. And I made it all the way to the semifinals, which makes sense. The work wasn't that good. Now that I have the perspective and the experience and that I have, I'm not mad at it. But the finalists and the winners got to go to Adobe Max, and that was the year I think Quentin Tarantino was speaking. I know because one of my peers, she an amazing photographer, she was one of the finalists and went to San Francisco for Adobe Max. So it's kind of crazy for this year, because while I was doing the residency, I also ended up doing the Adobe Max. I was hired as one of the playlist curators, like a wildcard creative. I just sent in a portfolio, and they had because it was up on the website, on the pages, and it was everywhere, apply. So then I applied, and then I got to do a commission and
That's
Max.
Awesome. Do you feel like this is a little bit of full circle, because you've started and you looking back, it didn't work out, but now it worked out exactly at the right time? Because that's a little bit sometimes how I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. It was, in every way, it was a full circle moment, and I just had to settle into it, because I was like, wow, it's happened. It's happening. Because it hasn't just happened, it's happening, and it's very, you can't explain what it will feel like. I think you can imagine the moments where you achieve a goal or you accomplish something, manifest. But when everything started happening, it was all very surreal. And I just had to keep reminding myself to just be grounded and be in the experience, focus on the work, especially considering the fact that now that I'm here, I don't want to leave. So I was to always ensure that I'm really giving really great work and just focusing on that, because that's what gets you there. I'm a big believer in do the work, do the art, ask the right questions, and the answers will find you as you continue in your journey, as long as you focus on getting your work to the level that it needs to get to. So even when I was producing my work, that was all I was ever thinking of, is that your work got you here, and it is your work that's going to keep you here, and it's also your work that's going to keep you progressing as well.
Yeah. And I also feel like don't be too shy about putting your work out there, because even if you don't win or you don't get something out of it, it's always going to get you further, just to be like brave enough to show your work to the world and develop through that. At least that's my experience, where like I've lost so many times when I send in photos to awards or stuff like that, but it's more about you look back now and you understand why, but you needed that experience to get to that point, to understand what works, what doesn't work, and it's like you grow from that point. So
yeah,
that's a little bit of my experience. Yes.
No, I was just saying it's so interesting that you said that, because I was literally having that conversation with a friend yesterday, where she was just sharing some news like about something that she had, award that she had received and one that she hadn't. And just a week ago, I had applied for this residency and I really wanted it. I've been dreaming of it for a year because it's in Switzerland. So I didn't get it. And there was a part of me, and I was just telling her that, like challenges or contrasting experiences, they only just, it's all perspective. And I always try to put myself in the perspective of a solution. I always put myself in the perspective of moving forward and saying, maybe I wasn't the person for the work at the time. And then I always go back to my portfolio and go, okay, so where do we need to improve? How is it that you can be better? How can you be clearer and more concise? I always come back to, this is where I want to be. And then I question, okay, did I do enough to get it? Maybe I did, and then I'm like, maybe I didn't. Maybe I could have spent a bit more time. So I'm always like in that space of just correcting, getting my energy right. And I take L's all the time. I'm so used to like no's that I just go, it is what it is, but it's never a reflection of your work.
Yeah. Because I know we have a lot coming, let's jump into your photos and your projects. I'm just going to say hi to some people in the chat, because I already see some familiar names. I see Sean, I see Sandrine, I see, who else is here? Who are you guys? Oliver. Oh, there's Tim. Don't know who that is. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Lovely to see familiar names every time. Tim who? Yeah, I don't know who that guy is. He seems to watch a lot of the streams. Okay, let's jump into your photos. I, off the bat, have to say, I think your portraits are ones of my absolute favorites, because I remember seeing you joining the community fund and clicking on your Instagram account, and your portraits just have some livelihood to them. Like they speak to you. You see that it's not just a person, like a photo of a person just randomly. You see emotion, you can look into their eyes, and you feel a connection. And I think that is the difference between just a random photo and someone that takes a photo with a connection and a meaning behind it. That is just something I see when I look at your work. So I'm really, really happy so we get to show that to everyone today.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. So yeah, this is some of my work. So this is the cover page, my name there, very big and bold, in case y'all forget. So I do specialize in portraiture, fashion photography, and the first line of my artist statement says that my work occupies the intersection between documentary, spirituality, fashion, and photography, because I just look at all those things as quite all-encompassing. Because for me, it isn't just a photograph. It speaks to so many different layers and so many experiences and ways of living and being. So I channel like a lot of myself and my life into the work that I create. And like, so this is like a self-portrait that I took while I was away, and the captions reads, "I think the story is about a girl that gets her color back," which is important because I don't only work in photography. I work like in multidisciplinary way. I work with photography is like my main medium, but I also work with text. I do installation, and I also work with sound as well. And I'm really interested in work living together and creating bodies of work that have multiple layers. Like I'm interested in how can I express one idea in multiple ways. If this can live as a photograph, then it can also live as a piece of text. How do I bring in sound? How do I bring in motion? How, so I try to layer my work as much as possible. And this is like keywords that I use that are not in order of importance. It's order of aesthetics because of the shape.
It's because that looks really like because they go down like that. Really hard to explain, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, but like, so these are like some of the themes that my work deals with. Right now I'm exploring like the concepts of time, which I started working with last year. And it's very interesting working with time when we're in a pandemic and time has completely changed, or our experience of time has changed because the pandemic has brought about like a level of awareness when it comes to time. For a lot of us, blackness, like I'm a black woman in South Africa, so my work is very linked to like the black experience. And sometimes it's also not just about my black experience, it's about experiences of black people all over the world, because there are so many things that we do share. Even though geography is different, we share so much. And I have a lot of followers like in the diaspora, and I've been in spaces where my work was experienced by like black communities in other parts of the world. And I think when you cut down to it, it is about the connection. Like a lot of people will just connect to the work more. You connect to the nitty gritties of it. Color, fashion, being a woman. These are all things that are really important to me and important into how I express myself and how I navigate the world. I really love fashion portraiture. Like one of my big inspirations is Paolo Roversi and Tim Walker. That's like when I started
Tim
learning.
Walker. Love Tim Walker. Oh my god!
With the sets.
But the whole production behind his photos. Oh my god! And also, like, most of it is actually done in camera. Like, stuff could have been done in Photoshop, but it's not, and it's just. If I look at these photos, I'm like, I want to do this. Can I get like a budget of a lot of money and also a lot of talented people to build me a set?
Yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah.
I love Tim Walker. Like, I just love any work that has like a high art level of art in it. Yeah. And that's one of my goals, to be able to make work like that. I'm a huge fan of Leslie Zhang, a Chinese photographer. I hope Zhang is Chinese. And wow, just the beauty of the work. The texture is really lovely. So I love fashion, and I'm like heavily influenced by fashion photography in my storytelling. Yeah. Then like this thing, like themes of healing, and that healing is linked to vulnerability and representation as well, because so much of my work is about healing. Like, it's a healing experience. It's very personal because it does come from what I used to see growing up and the types of images that I saw, and how those images didn't represent the spaces that I lived in, or they didn't represent my experiences. You get like so many voyeuristic images of Africa, and images are they're really important. Like, I really believe in the power of visuals in perspective and how perspective actually influences life. So much of the storytelling around Africa as a dark continent and that single story was able to thrive because of who held of the perspective that was generally shared, and who had the technology and the power at the time to share the story, who had the biggest platform. So I always think about counter narratives, challenging like mainstream norms around the Black body and Black experiences. And also my work is like about my personal healing as well. Like work, it can be like a bit selfish because it is personal, it is about me, and it is my perspective. And what I enjoy about work and art is that I'm contributing to an archive. When we'll be looking at images 10 years and 20 years from now, and I'm just a contributor to time, I'm a contributor to memory, and all these different themes that I try to speak to and explore, I'm just sharing my perspective. And that's how that grounds me and also keeps me honest with myself, and ensures that I'm always working from my heart and from a place that's of truth.
Yeah, but I do believe that we all can only tell our own reality. Like we can only show what we see, and that's the only thing we can do from an honest standpoint, because it's our beliefs, our views. And one thing that interests me, because that is an attempt that I'm trying to achieve, or like that I'm trying to go towards, is to combine the fashion aspect with meaning behind the images, because I think on one side fashion photography sometimes lacks a little bit of emotion and lacks connection. If you just look at a magazine or you look at a billboard and you see a fashion photo, it's usually very like no emotion in the face, or very distant, like it's not something that draws you in emotionally. But to get that aspect of beauty and fashion, and to attract people through something that looks pretty in their eyes, but then have deeper meaning behind it, or like then have emotion behind it. Because for me, it's basically something that lures people in. The image looks nice, the setting is nice, but by looking at it, they hopefully understand the meaning behind it, or question the meaning behind it. And that is also something that I saw in your images, because you do it so well that a photo looks aesthetically pleasing or has an emotional message behind it, or you see something in the eyes of the person you took the photo of. But it's also very fashionable. Like I know there are more photos coming where I can tell you which ones I mean. But to combine these two things, to get people to look at your photo because they see something they know, like beauty and fashion, but then once they look at it, to be like, well, there's more, and you will see and recognize all of this. Is this something you've been thinking about, or is that something is in your work, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a very big part of my work, because I love fashion, and I think I hadn't always identified as someone who likes fashion, or because sometimes fashion can put you in a box, and when we say fashion, we're always thinking of just of clothes, or we're thinking of what's in a store. Whereas I remember when I was studying, we were looking at dress as markers of belonging. So I'm a very meaning based person, so I always like to think of, what does it mean to put this in the frame? What is what you're wearing means? How does it? Where does it place you in society? Where does it place you in time? Fashion is such a good way to tell if a person is, to read a person. It's you can have different personalities. It's just based on how you dress. It's an expression of a different part of yourself. Fashion is so freeing as well. And where we are right now in 2020, where we're working with more gender, it's I guess because gender neutrality has always existed. I think I hope someone who's like really good with names is in the chat. I think it's Simone Dubois who like was working with fashion and gender fluidity, like in like 50 years ago. And you have artists who are like, your Cindy Shermans, who are working with like fashion and personality, and how Cindy Sherman was able to create a character based on how she would dress herself. So I think fashion is so important. And when I moved to Johannesburg, that's when I actually started to learn more about look at culture deeply, because then I was also in a space where I was starting to experience pop culture and experience like Black culture in a way that I'd never engaged with it before, because I'd never seen it expressed that way. So the images that we're on right now, this is part of the work that I created for Lightroom, and the model is Kanye. Kanye is an amazing collaborator. She and I have worked in a few projects, and she styled the shoots. So when sometimes I'll style and I'll prescribe, but Kanye is one of my collaborators where I just go, you bring the clothes, and I'm gonna we'll drive around, walk around, and we'll take some photos. Because I've worked in branding as well, I also understand meaning, and I understand what branding means. So, and how so many brands, their success can be attributed to like Black culture, and so that's why I'm very interested in how people dress, and I may not be a sneaker head per se, but I'm interested in sneaker culture, because there's value in what we do. The idea of a Michael Jordan existing, and the fact that the Jordan brand is such an important component of Nike. You can't divorce the Black experience from that. And I believe that it's important for these conversations to happen. So much stuff that has been popularized because of Black pioneers who wore clothes, people who wore Timberlands in an unconventional way, brought about the mainstream acceptance, and the mainstream turned Timberlands into a fashion, and not just a shoe that you would wear hiking specifically. Like, you take it out of the context and all of a sudden it has a different meaning. So with images like this, like I shot this where I was living in Pretoria, and this was all like edited on Lightroom. And you see,
someone asked before if you shoot digital or film, just before I forget. Someone in the chat asked that before. That is shot digitally, right?
Yes, this is shot digitally. I shoot digitally mostly. I have a very good friend who's trying to get me to shoot more film. I'm not mad at it. I did a really dope shoot with film. I just didn't get a chance to scan the images, but I shoot digitally, and I'm very interested in like grading. I look at a lot of film work in my work, because that influences my post-production. I just interested in how the tones work, and these two images came about, and you'll see like I have quite a lot of frames like this now, because a friend of mine asked me to have my people that I photograph not look at the frame. He was like, you're really good at eye contact. How would you work with someone where there is no eye contact? And I always enjoy a challenge, because we're in the space to learn. So I will always have like a big fashion element in my work, as you said.
Yeah.
So this was also part of my commission. This is my sister and my friend, and another person that I collaborate with a lot, Sami Masego, thespian and just incredible mover. You'll see her a few times in this presentation, and we shot this in our apartment. A lot of my work does start with me shooting against the white wall, and then I will go, maybe it doesn't work with just the white wall. Moving forward, we can add more things, but I do enjoy like the simplicity, that's that Paulo Roversi, Sanelem Holy influence. So this work, I graded it. I love very heavily contrasting black and whites. So this was graded on Photoshop and Lightroom. like in my Photoshop, because I also just wanted to work on the skin a bit. And then what was really cool was that I have like a profile on Photo Vogue. This image got featured, and these images were being exhibited at the F&B Art Fair this year that was happening in SA. It's like one of the biggest art fairs that happens in the country,
That's amazing.
on the continent. And this image, they had like a huge life-size version of it that was on display. They didn't have a photo. Nobody took a photo to show me, so I can't show you what it looked like outside. Yeah.
That is amazing. I feel like it's so nice to see. I know we live in such a digital world, but to see your work printed, I don't know, gives it a whole other value. I don't know. I have stuff printed, and especially if it's printed pretty big. The bigger, the better for me when it comes to prints. And like, obviously, if it's really good quality, but it makes the work so much more valuable and it makes it so much more real. I love stuff printed. And I hope we have exhibitions soon next year again. I hope it's going to be possible. So, yeah.
I love that. I honestly think in prints, sometime I can always, like most of the time, about a good 80% of my work, I can see it in a print. So with this work, I'd already seen like the size, the frame, where it will be positioned, because I'm currently planning my first solo show, and this is my sister, and since like from the time I was a kid, I've just loved my sister's hair, and this was the first time I photographed her, and it just meant so much for me, because my sister she means so much to me, and her hands, she carries me, like she's carried me through so much. And for me to just make like these portraits for her, and then for them to have gone as far as they've gone, it meant a lot to me, and her as well. So yeah, these are prints, and I can't wait for like a huge display of them, because my theory as well, like not theory, my philosophy around print work, and as a Black woman, I always think about taking up space. You know, I think it's you and anybody like who comes from a marginalized community. I'm always like, take up space. So big prints for me are part of that philosophy. They're part of taking up space in a room and just being unapologetic about your presence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Completely agree. I think all your photos deserve to be printed as huge as possible, and you should take up all the space. So I can't wait to see all of them.
Thanks. I'm
this excited. Is beautiful. I love the fabric. I love the texture. I would have that in my room, like in my apartment. If that is printed, I would have it in my apartment. I love the color. I love the texture, the composition. That is just so good. I can't you should talk. I would just compliment the whole time.
Thank you. So when I got the brief for the project, it was very open-ended, which is great and sometimes scary. And I always want to make work that's meaningful, you know, even if it's a commission, I want the work to mean something. So these shots here and here were actually the first shoot that we did. And you know, right now in South Africa, there's a huge crisis around violence against women and children, you know, high levels of femicide, abuse of people who are in marginalized communities. And I'm the kind of person who I can't not care, and I can't not say something, especially if I feel moved. And I'm very moved when it comes to the experiences of Black women and experiences of people who are just treated differently because of who they are. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And so I've been doing research around your environment and how your environment affects your immunity, and how, you know, there's just so much that happens that we don't see. And the violence is so pervasive because there's so much that you don't want to do because you're afraid. There was a survey done recently, and they were talking about someone asked women, if there were no men in the country for a day, what
Yeah, I've
would you
seen that.
do? And they said they just take walks and
Yeah,
take walks
just
at
go
night,
outside at night or like go for a walk in the evening or
right?
something. Yeah, I saw that too.
So
Yeah.
so for me, I was like, yeah, just taking walks. Women just want peace. They want the freedom to be. And it's difficult when your external environment doesn't allow that for you. So I'm like, okay, I can't depend on the external environment. How do I create space for myself? How do I heal myself enough to just for me to feel secure, for my personal security? And so as we were making this work, I think that's the last of it, with Sami, we were having like very real conversations. And so with these brighter colors and brighter tones, it is about the joy. And there's a lot of images that we took that I haven't gone around to editing, but the color, the brightness, the glitteriness, it is about the joy. It is about the magic of just being a woman. I think being a woman is a beautiful experience. I love being a woman. And then there are these parts where it's harsh and it's dark and there's anxiety. So I wanted to speak to these different things using different tones and using colors. And the series is called A Color Study in Silk, The Weight of Divinity. And I call this big body of work A Color Study in Silk that carries the body of work, because it's actually how I'm conversing with things that are happening in the now, but through fashion. So we've spent a lot of time thinking about styling and texture and what kind of these elements, like everything was put together by myself, and we went shopping and we conceptualized it, and like a lot of time was spent thinking about the look and the feel of the work and the styling of it as well. And I don't always want to use violence to speak to violence. For me, I'd rather speak about healing. So these images, it's like you said, the images are an access point. They're how I have a conversation. It's the only way, like sometimes, that I can actually deal with something, is to deal with it in a way that allows me to move forward, maybe make peace with it. And this project is ongoing, and it's really about me speaking to what's happening, but speaking directly to those who are being affected and saying, yeah, this is happening, and then looking at what it is that we can do for ourselves to just preserve our internal world and to create a space for yourself where you can be free to exist.
Yeah, I love that, because I feel like it is something where it speaks from so deep within you, like your work and your art. And I think that's a very inspiring thing for people if they are starting out, or if you feel stuck a little bit in what you want to create and what you want to say with what you do. If it's something that moves you, and if it's something that you want to have a conversation about, you can use your art as an opener for conversations. You can use it as a tool to express what you feel, what you struggle with, what has importance to you. And I feel like that makes work so much better. And it's not about the settings in the camera, rather than what do you want to say with that. And I think that for me is really important. And I completely echo what you just said.
Yeah, and even to create the awareness. I'm one of those people who believes that whether you do something, you do or you don't, you did, And I always ask myself, which side of the doing or the not doing do I want to be? And I guess I get uncomfortable if something affects me deeply, and then I don't say something, or I don't make work, and it's a long process, because figuring out what to say and how to say it, I don't always have the words. So I always spend like a lot of time on the captions, like these long captions, because I've done research and I'm looking at stats. But I want to always be in the best position to speak to something. I don't want to be speaking to the violence if I'm only speaking from a place of fear, So yeah, it's
One
the
question
doing.
I do have, like from the photography standpoint, do you take photos with natural lighting or do you take them with studio lighting?
Only natural light. I sometimes work with studio lights, but
Yeah.
it doesn't hit for me the way natural light does. I love the sun.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time just looking at how light moves in a space. So I'm really interested in that, in working with natural lights, and becoming like a master of lights and using unconventional lighting techniques. That's the next phase of that I'm entering into. Yeah.
Yeah, Jan already said
So,
it's a great quote what you said when you said, I don't want to speak about violence if I'm only speaking from a place of fear. And I think I completely agree. Really good.
yeah, because it's about energy, you know.
Yeah.
What it's in the New Earth, Eckhart Tolle speaks about pain, how pain bodies can energize each other. And I remember thinking about, yeah, you know, when you get into a space and it's a very angry crowd, people are angry, and that can make the anger bubble. You know, we can get angrier and we're all fired up. I'm like, oh, if pain can energize, then joy can energize.
Yeah.
And healing can energize healing, and love can energize love. So I always think, I always bet on the positive. I always bet on faith and on love, and always try to energize that aspect in my work.
Yeah. Completely agree. So we have around 15 more minutes. So I hope we get to see a little
Dope.
bit more, because I know we have so much more and I want to show as much as possible.
Okay. So this is a body of work that I started last year. It's called A Study of Femininity, a radically soft portraiture project subverting the abject. So this is just the cover. I like working with text, and I'm exploring things like how I can like working with my images in different ways. And for my portfolios, just for people who are looking, this is how I usually send work out when I'm sending applications. And with this project, I worked with Photoshop. Most of the work is graded on Photoshop, and I love bringing in color and playing with like depth and texture in images, because this work is really about femininity and the abject. And if you don't know what the abject is, it's that which is cast off. Things that spoil, things that rot, that end. And in essence, we're all abject. But in like hegemonic culture and studies, women are considered to be more abject, and the feminine, actually not just women, the feminine is considered to be more abject because it's closer to the natural world, to nature. So I like to like subvert things or speak to things by having the thing that I'm speaking about in the image in a multiple layers. And in this project, for me, it was really about bringing people who like not feminine as how we think of it, but feminine more in the sense of safety, in the sense of taste, in the sense of people who just are who they are, people who care, you know, people who are soft. And that's how I like chose my sitters. And then as I was editing, this was the first image that I did in black and white, and it was a total accident that it ended up looking like this. I was doing my retouching, and when I dodge and burn, sometimes if an image is too flat, like if I let it like not in the best way for me, like it's not in focus, but it's like it's just flat, no contours, I will I edit on I dodge and burn on a black and white layer. So I had pushed the black and whites quite far, and I remember going, I don't mind this at all. Let's keep going and seeing where this takes us. And that's how I actually ended up starting to work with more black and white in my imagery and this style of black and white. And this last year was featured on like my photo vote profile. This is Kyle again, and this is my friend Gabby, and that black and white came in, and then last year I was doing a residency in the UK with the art house, and I really wanted to carry on photographing the series. So, and this is Dope St. Jude, and we were studying Dope St. Jude in college. And when I checked on her profile, she was in London, and I slid into her DMs. I'm like, I would love to photograph you for the series because you embody what the series is about. It's just about radical beingness, unapologetic softness, unapologetic you-ness. And she said yes. And I was in Wakefield. My residency was in Wakefield. So then I went from Wakefield to London, and we took some portraits. And then for the exhibition, this was how the images were exhibited at the opening. So I created like a shrine installation piece for the work, because they wanted me to just hang the work up, and I was like, how can I come all the way to London and just hang some pictures on a wall? That's madness. So I started doing research. I was like, how can I create something around this work? How do I elevate this portrait, and how do I make a new image? Because for me, this is an image now. It's an experience, and experience is also like an image. So this was how that ended up being exhibited, and this was us putting the work together, and you can see there's like a bit more of the detail around it. At the exhibition, I left like my meditation candle, because I believe that there should be shrines created to Black women. We should. And this was also about celebration. We should be radical and big about how we celebrate ourselves. And this was part of my residency as well, exhibited at the Manchester Contemporary Art Fair. I was really excited and really happy for the work and to be present for that experience as well. So these are just some prints that I did.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we have five-ish more minutes. What project you want to jump to? Oh yeah, let's talk about the Instagram story question real quick before we jump off, because I don't want to.
Cool. So this one is like, I'm interested in communication, and I have like a big interest in time. Again, like, when we look back at our time and how we speak, what are we gonna say? Like, what does it mean? I'm interested in meaning. Like, I don't always think about how people feel when they look at my work, because I think feeling is so personal. Even meaning is personal, but I always operate from like a place of meaning, and I like to understand things like, what does this mean? Why? How? So with this project, I have notes, like thousands of notes on my phone, and I always think about what would happen if I posted my draft tweets. Like, really, like, what do you think will happen if you post your draft tweets? What do you think will happen if, instead of asking a question, you say what is really what you're trying to say, which is love me, or see me, or I want to connect, I'm lonely. Like, can we actually use these spaces to be authentic and vulnerable? So I started to look at like the camera and the idea of closeness and the idea of sharing and the online space. And so I have like all these questions that I have using this and like this feature.
Ask me anything.
Yeah, ask me anything, but mine are like things like, did I manifest you? Because I'm interested in love. Like this year I was like exploring love, and like, did I manifest you, or did you manifest me? Like just questions, like random questions. Some of them, it's just things that will pop into my mind. It's things that I've asked people before, or things where I go, if I'm feeling brave, I will definitely say that. So these were, again, like just did some self-portraits, because this was done during my residency time and I was alone, and it gave me a lot of time to look within and to really like connect with myself and be real and be vulnerable, because I had the space to do it because I wasn't at home. And then I produced this body of work, which was part of the installation and that I did, and part of the exhibition was like these tiny phone-sized prints, and I've been working on evolving it, and these are why I have these prints that I'm starting to create, and like working a bit more intentionally with the text, and also, look at that, I put the wrong one, but it's fine. So I work like with text, and I'm interested again in creating a relationship between text, the frame, and words, because for me they work together. So this was just from some work that I did at the beginning of this year. This was the beginning of a color study in silk, and for me, again, this comes down to culture. And SA has a really amazing street fashion scene. Like, street fashion in South Africa is just incredible, and I believe that we have the capacity to compete with like some of the best in the world. You know, we have contributed as much to culture and fashion, and we are as engaged in culture and fashion as everybody else is. This shot is one of my favorites from the series, because for me it doesn't matter without this. This for me is what makes it very much like SA. And when I posted it, I remember going like, shout out to Pumzi, because that's a tattoo of Kanye's mom. And for me, this image has so much cultural value for me, and that's like also I think the space that I operate in. Like, I'm in the space of, I'm patient with work. I don't always think work needs to sell, but this is going to be a print that lives in my house, and in 10 years I know that it's going to be worth something, and it's going to mean something when we have the perspective of looking at this time, like when we're looking at it from a different perspective. And I think that's the last one. Yeah, and everything, this whole series, like, is color graded on Photoshop, but this was shot like this. Like, I like to put stuff in front of the camera, so this I put like a cotton, I think it was yellow, orange cotton was in front, and then I shot through it, and I loved how it came out. And Kanye again styled this, and the styling is so relevant, like it's so now at the same time, but it's also a bit of a throwback. And if you are interested in street fashion, I implore you to look at street fashion in SA, because wow, I love it.
That's also one of the photos that I meant, where it's so you can see a connection and you see the fashion so much, where you see both of these things being married so well together. Cool.
Sorry, just a point in this. When Behance, this work was shared on Behance, and someone commented about the unimportance of aesthetics. And I think that's why now I speak a bit more vocally about the importance of the Black aesthetic specifically, because I can't look at life and I can't look at time and say aesthetics are not important, when I know how much we've contributed to culture and to where the world is. And I'm like, no, this aesthetic matters. Like, aesthetics have a value. If you don't look like you belong in a space, it means something. If you belong in a space, it means something. So that it was kind of hurtful, but also I don't always like want to engage with it. But I believe like in the power of visuals. You can't say aesthetics don't matter when art exists. Like visual art exists. Like what?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think it's a really great ending to this stream, because that's basically, I feel like, rounds it up really well. And I highly encourage everyone to check out Cole's. What is the best way to find your work? Instagram? Behance?
Yeah, all of it is active. It's all active. So you can follow me on Instagram and Behance. And if you want to see a bit more of my projects that are currently up on my website, you can take a look. And I really appreciate everybody who's here, who's watched the stream, engaged.
Yes.
And
you got really nice compliments. I didn't say all of them, but someone said, like, complimented all your portraiture. I think Sandrine was it. Then John said your work is timeless. So I feel like everyone in the street, like in the chat, really enjoyed your work. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I'm really happy we finally got to do the stream together. And I can't wait to see all your work up on the walls and the sounds and where you're gonna go in the future. And I'm really happy that I can follow you on the internet to know what's going to happen until you come to Berlin, until we can all travel again and we can finally meet in real life. And yes, thank you so much. It was very, very lovely.
Thank you.
And on that note, we have streams every day. We also still have a challenge going on the light side. If you want to know more about that, there's a whole stream. We have one more week. You can win a Creative Cloud for a year, so don't miss that. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day and a wonderful Thursday, and thank you so much for joining us, and I see you next week. Bye everyone.
Bye. Thank you.